everybody, you're watching The Culture Cave. I'm Gabriella White here on Okinawa. Joining me today is a very special guest. His name is Carl, and he's on an incredible mission here in Okinawa and doing a lot of conservation work with the sea turtles. So we're going to take you on a journey in this episode talking about Carl's passion in Okinawa for saving these turtles. Now there are 7 types of sea turtles.
Yep.
Can you walk us through those different turtles?
Each one, yeah. The biggest is the leatherback, then the green sea turtle, loggerhead, hawksbill, Kemp's ridley, olive ridley, and the flatback.
Right. Now these all rank in terms of how endangered they are. Is it safe to say they're all endangered?
They're all on the IUCN's red list of endangered animals, but each species of sea turtle has its own classification, I suppose, of endangerment.
Sorry to interrupt you, this is a UN ranking.
IUCN is the International Union of Conservation Nature.
Yes. Yeah, so tell us more in terms of these different types of turtles.
So the most endangered, being critically endangered, would be the hawksbill sea turtle, which is a resident here of Okinawa. We have transient hawksbills, we have resident hawksbills, meaning they live and breed around here, nest on our beaches, and die on our beaches.
Oh my goodness, yes. What is the cause of death for these sea turtles?
Yeah, there's basically 2 broad categories of natural threats and human-made threats, exacerbating their endangerment. On the human side, we have pollution, whether it be oil, chemical, but also plastic. Plastic can be ingested into the bodies and cause organ failure, malnutrition, etc. Because it doesn't break down, they can't pass it through.
Yes.
And sometimes they end up starving because their stomachs are so full they lose the desire to eat.
Wow.
And that happens quite a lot.
That sounds very similar to the way in which humans go through famine. In a sense, they're very similar to humans, aren't they?
Possibly, yeah. Then we have entanglement, bycatch, with discarded fishing gear, which we call ghost nets, fishing lines, fishing ropes, fishing hooks, etc. Can kill them. Boat strikes are another big cause of death over here. And the loss of nesting habitat, which doesn't necessarily kill them outright, but it prevents them from laying their eggs and passing on their genes, and therefore affects the population on the whole.
Yeah, I was shocked to learn from Carl this morning that jet skis also pose a risk to sea turtles, and these are, these kind of fun ocean sports that we embark on, but it's a real eye-opener to think about the potential dangers that can cause to sea creatures such as turtles, swimming along on the surface. Yeah.
Well, they have to come up to breathe, right?
Yeah.
They don't have gills, they're reptiles, and so they are lung breathers.
Yeah.
And every few minutes or every few hours, they'll come up, take a breath of air, and sometimes they'll just hang out on the surface.
Yeah.
And if they're sick or there's something wrong, they're caught up in lines or nets, they will be on the surface for a long time, which increases their susceptibility to not just boats, but also predation from sharks and other marine animals.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say that sea turtles are extremely vulnerable creatures.
Yeah.
There are several kind of predatory routes that can get them, and I was also astonished when Carl educated me this morning about the survival rate of these sea turtles, and it's kind of ironic because they've survived for centuries, millennia even. Millions.
Hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions of years, and yet there's a very small survival rate.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's hard to get a pinpoint number on their survivability, but it's estimated, some experts say 1 in 1,000, some say 1 in 10,000. So we like to take the middle ground of 1 in several thousand, because it's easy to exaggerate some of these things. and become an alarmist in some cases. But one in several thousand, I think, is pretty recognized throughout the world of conservation. And so if one sea turtle lays 100 eggs at a time, then hopefully in most cases they can lay several times in a season. But you can imagine that they would need to lay 10 nests of 100 eggs to get to 1,000. And so over many, many years, they will lay several thousand. And the statistics say that only one in several thousand will make it to adulthood, where they are able to pass on their genes and reproduce, mate, lay eggs, etc.
And do you reckon it's always been like that in history, or has it changed?
I think the human impact has really exacerbated their survivability decrease. In nature, they face a lot of threats. In the eggs, there are a lot of animals that will predate them. They will dig them up and swallow them, eat them. Recently, we've just actually had our first case of mongoose predation on 2 of our nests just down the road here. It's the first time we've ever seen something like that. But crabs are usually a big problem for us. Birds, when they're coming out. Snakes bury their heads into the sand and gobble up the eggs and babies. And stray cats, or even house pet cats that are allowed out at night, which is pretty common around here. People don't like to keep the cats indoors all the time. They let them roam around, which is a different environmental stress. Interesting. But they're a problem. All these animals have acute sense of smell, and so they can tell where the eggs are, and they'll dig them out and eat them. But then when they come out of the nest, obviously birds are waiting for them, crabs are waiting for them, other animals, dogs and cats. And once they get in the water, they're only 4 or 5 centimeters, and so any fish of a normal size will want to gobble them up, like the mahi-mahi, the tuna, or anything. And then birds pick them off because they can't dive. They spend a lot of time on the surface, and they get attacked from all angles. And,
even wild boar, I remember you saying.
Wild boars, not in this area because it's pretty built up, residential. But some of the more remote places, especially the Karama Islands, they have a problem over there. The wild boars are very intelligent creatures, right? And so they'll come down to the beach in the nesting season, watch the mother come up, wait for her to leave, and then just decimate the whole nest. 100 eggs gobbled up in a very short time.
So Carl is connected because of the migration of turtles to places such as Hawaii, Thailand, and he tags these creatures so that they can be trapped and stand a better chance of survival, right?
So the tagging basically just helps us to collect data. We try to do as much as we can, but we don't tag as much as we'd like to. But we do have one of the nation's biggest stranding response teams. Last season we recorded over 80 strandings, which is what we call usually a dead turtle that washes up. Sometimes they're still alive in distress and need rescuing, but occasionally we find one with a tag on it. And that would tell us where it was tagged. And then we contact those people who tagged them and release them. And we will share that information. It was found here on this date at this size, and they will tell us how big it was, where it was released, and so we can ascertain how much it had grown during that time and how far it traveled. And so one of the tags that we discovered was from a turtle that was tagged in Taiwan. And so we contacted those guys and therefore forged a relationship with them as well, the researchers. Another tag we recovered was from Oita Prefecture in Kyushu, mainland. And so the data we collect really helps researchers understand more about their migration patterns and growth and behaviors, etc. Then because we do necropsies as well, we open them up and try to ascertain cause of death, whether they have ingested plastic, if that's a cause of death, their stomach contents, what they've been feeding on. In most cases they're green turtles, juvenile green turtles, and there are sometimes signs of visible injuries, etc. Like if they're missing a limb, based on what that injury looks like, it could be a shark or something has eaten them, or they've been tangled in a line and basically amputated.
Right.
But none of these are very scientifically accurate because the injuries could have happened after death as well.
Right.
But checking out the stomach contents, especially for a green turtle, who are the herbivores of the sea turtle world, and so the different types of algae, seaweed, seagrass that we find in their stomach and digestive tract, we can usually pinpoint which area they've been foraging as well, which also helps for research.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're actually here in the Uze Beach area. Now Uze Beach has a very special significance for sea turtles. In fact, sea turtles have a magnetic, or the ability to connect with a magnetic field, which is just magical. Can you summarize what that is?
Yeah, like you said, it's magical. There's a lot we don't know about it, but apparently the Earth has magnetic fields wrapped around it. And based on the strength or weakness of it, animals, not just turtles, but birds, migratory animals, I assume, can sense where they are in relation to where they want to be. And so when sea turtle babies are rushing to the water after hatching, that gives them, it's a very important stage of their life, to imprint that geomagnetic field into their, they have a special sensory organ in their brain somewhere, apparently. And so they recognize that. And once they start their migration across the Pacific or down depending on where they're going, sometimes down the coast of Asia, and return to their birthing grounds.
Which is here. This is one of them.
Decades later, they can
Wow.
find their way back. And I think, if I'm using it correctly, neonatal. I've just forgotten it.
Neonatal. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, I just said a minute ago, right?
The neonatal, it's something to. Anyway, they have a very special navigational ability. It's safe to say. Now, if it's okay with your permission, I'd like to show our viewers some of your footage of a recent rescue. So stay tuned, everybody, and please have a look at this footage, which we're about to show you, of Carl. And where was this recorded?
This was over on the east coast in an area called Ginoza.
Ginoza. And this is footage of a rescue that's taking place. Before we show our viewers the footage, can you tell us what was happening here?
So we got a report from some friends who just happened to be in the area. We also, by the way, run Japan's only 24-hour sea turtle rescue hotline. And so I get calls all throughout the night. Usually we get out there and we find that it's dead, and we take appropriate action. But when they're alive, obviously we jump in the water and we untangle them, or whatever we need to do. Sometimes they're on rocks and we have to scale down cliffs and stuff like that. But, and so we will take it into our care, and depending on what kind of medical attention is required, we will throw them in the turtle truck and transport them up to the aquarium for that specialized treatment and attention.
What was happening with this specific one?
So this specific one, we got a report that she was kind of bobbing up and down on the surface, which tells us she has buoyancy issues, which is life-threatening because they can't sustain that. They need to dive to forage, or they will get attacked by sharks, or hit by more boats, or tangled in more nets and stuff. And so we rushed out there, and this one was, it took us a long time to find it because they don't stay still for the most part. There were strong currents, and it was a really wide open bay like this. And so thankfully we had a lot of volunteers to come out and help search for this specimen, and we eventually found it, and she was sitting on the bottom with a butt in the air, which happens when there's an embolism, or a pneumothorax, I think they call it, where the lung is ruptured and air escapes into the abdominal cavity, and therefore they can't suppress that and control their buoyancy or diving techniques. And so she was at the bottom at this time, and I dived down and grabbed her, wrangled her up to the surface, put her on some flotation devices and paddled her into shore. But we noticed she had a big injury on the back of the carapace, what we call the shell. There was a big crack in there, and some air was coming out, which is never a good sign. She had a tumor in her eye, she had an ear infection, and not in good shape. Very emaciated, very malnourished, and wouldn't have survived very long.
And she was covered in algae, wasn't
algae,
she?
Which is not
sign of stagnation.
Right.
Slow swimming.
Immunity levels were down, and so she really needed help. So we got her up to the aquarium quick smart, and they took good care of her. They got her on some IV nourishment, probably seriously dehydrated as well. So some fluids to replenish what was lost. She was also severely constipated, like her system was blocked.
Do we know how old she was?
We do not, but based on the size, she was well over a meter. I think 104 centimeters, just in the carapace, excluding the head and flippers, etc., which is huge. She's well mature. Could have been, anything 40 to 60 years old.
Now, turtles can live a very long time, can't they? How old? What's the oldest one you've witnessed?
We don't know exactly how old they are, but
we know they can live up to 200 years, right?
No.
Is that a myth?
That would be Galapagos turtle or something like that. Land turtles, tortoises, sea turtles. It's regularly understood that 100 years is probably about max, but the 80 years is a really good life. But most of them don't make it that long in the wild. Captivity, it's easy to track their age, of course, but also keep them safe, unnaturally.
So please have a look at this footage, folks. It's deeply moving. You can see Carl doing his thing with the volunteer team here, and please also look out. She's got, I think, a punctured lung or something.
Right on the back.
It's deeply moving. But let's take a moment to appreciate that footage, and we'll be back soon to talk about more of Carl's conservation work. Hi everyone, welcome back. So you've just witnessed some of the really important footage of what Carl does here now. He's actually done over 30 of those kinds of missions here and has rescued over 2,200 turtles at this point.
Well,
approximately.
I wouldn't say rescued, but kept them protected.
Yes,
in order to see them safely to the water. And then after that, you know, who knows what goes on there. Right?
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning, actually, Carl. How did this all begin for you, and why? I mean, there are so many different conservation efforts. Why did you choose the path of saving turtles?
Thank you. Good question. Just let me back up and correct one of those statements. 30 rescue missions is not necessarily diving down and wrangling them like that. A lot of them are babies that are injured coming out of the nest, and washbacks.
Okay.
So not as dramatic as the footage you just saw, but yeah, over 30 turtles that we have rescued.
I suppose there are so many different types of missions.
Yeah, exactly. But getting back to the origin stories, white turtles, how did this happen? So it was 5 years ago now. We were on that beach over there called Uza, and me and my buddy were walking along and we found these turtle tracks. We didn't know for sure what they were, but we suspected, oh, I've never seen something like this, right? And my buddy's an Okinawan. He grew up here his whole life. He's a lot older than me, he's over 60. And he'd never heard of any turtle activity in this part of the island, so we were pretty surprised and wanted to do the right thing. So we called around a few places, the village office, the fisheries union, the aquarium, and also the prefectural government offices to try and get a phone number of someone in the area who does conservation work. And they all told us that there's no one here doing that, and that we should just leave them alone. They don't need protection. And we go, screw that, because just learning that they're endangered species, they need all the help they can get, right?
Right.
And so we felt a big sense of responsibility, ran home and made a sign out of scrap wood in my backyard, dug in some stakes and roped it off with the sign and said, you know, sea turtle nest, please respect, in Japanese and English. And so we're down there watching it all night, every night, or throughout the day, taking turns and shifts, and studying at the same time, like, what do we expect? How long is the incubation? How many eggs are in there? What species was it? There's so many things we didn't know. And during this time, a lot of people are coming up to us asking what's going on, and we tell them the story. We found a sea turtle nest, and they're going, wow, that's really cool. That's never happened around here before. And
was that the turning point for you, where you're like, this is my life's work?
Not just yet, not just yet, but all these people are coming and saying, oh, we want to help. We can go home and get some rest, and we'll take over, kind of thing. We'll call you if we see something. And during the course of that, we ended up having 13 nests on this beach, and so that turned into a full time. We didn't have much work going on. It was during COVID, etc., and so we're down there. And while we're out there, of course, more mother turtles are coming up, and we got to see them and protect them and document the whole process. And then babies started hatching 60 days later. It takes about 2 months. And seeing that happen, seeing the fruits of your labor, I suppose, you know, the efforts making sense. And all the tiny babies running to the water, and that was very magical experiences as well. And then typhoons started coming, and despite our best efforts, we lost quite a few due to inundation, where they drowned inside the nest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. And there were some pretty moving moments there as well, and so that kind of solidified the mission. You know, we knew that if we tried a bit harder, if we didn't listen to the experts who told us to leave them alone and excavate them ahead of time, etc., we could have saved them. And since we learnt that only 1 in several thousand survived, we knew that every single baby counts. You know, every life is precious to ensure the survival of the population. And so that's when we decided to give ourselves a name. And now we have a core team of, you know, half a dozen members.
Right.
And we're out patrolling other beaches.
Yeah.
And we had to buy special equipment, you know. When you're out there at night, you can't use a flashlight. You have to use special red lights.
Right.
So that wild animals, if there are any hunters out there, they will know that red lights don't disturb. They have a different wavelength, and so wild animals don't detect them as much and not spooked, because mother turtles coming up to nest are very timid. Right? The slightest noise, human activity, even light. Fireworks are very popular here in Okinawa, especially around the coast with all the hotels. Campers, wild animals, dogs, etc. Will spook them, and they will stop laying and head back to the water. And if that continues, they will end up just dumping their eggs in the ocean, and therefore they don't have a chance to develop and become babies. And that's really sad as well. So we protect the coastline, protect the beaches, keep it quiet, keep it flat as well.
How large is your catchment area that you're responsible for protecting at this point?
So there's no official jurisdiction, but based on senpais, other organizations and individuals and teams around the island, there was a big gap in this central Okinawa. And so we basically took over all of Yomitan, which is 10 kilometers, except for the military base, which we don't have access to, and then most of Onna village as well. So pretty much just south of Nago, which equates to about 50 kilometers.
Right.
There are pockets of people managing specific beaches, but as far as the whole coastline, we let them do their thing. We don't want to step on anyone's toes, and so we try to expand as much as possible, because so many people want to help us, and we've got to take advantage of this. Volunteers, and so now we have about 60 volunteers. We patrol every beach in our jurisdiction a couple of times a week, if not every day, depending on the amount of activity on the beaches.
Not anyone can go out and just rescue turtles. So much as the calls to your hotline are appreciated, it's important that you go through a process and that you understand how to help them and not hinder them. Now you had to go through a particular process to get your organisation established, didn't you?
It really helped being recognised by the prefectural authorities, I suppose, on sea turtle conservation, which is the Chura Umi Aquarium. And they do obviously help us with all the medical treatment, etc. And so they vouched for us when we went to the prefectural office and tried to get our permits. And there are several different permits, one for eggs, one for babies, one for live turtles and dead turtles as well. And so this needs to be renewed every year, and so we have to submit our findings, reports of our activities throughout the year, and also provide a plan of research and conservation in order to get the new permits as well.
Now this is at times a 7 days a week mission for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing. Something doesn't happen every day. But yes, I'm on call, ready to go at a moment's notice. And so is the team. I'm so blessed to have a wonderful, committed team of volunteers who have the same passion, who want to save everything possible.
Now Carl runs on donations, so we're going to talk a little bit now about your website and how people can donate.
Yeah, thank you. So our team, our non-profit team of volunteers is called Chura Mura, which in the local dialect, Chura means beautiful, and Mura is the Japanese word for village, and we like the sound of it, Chura Mura. And so the website is Chura Mura, one word, CHURAMURA.org. Our Instagram is the same, but there's a dot between Chura and Mura.
So Chura.Mura?
Chura.Mura.
Yes. Okinawa, you can search Okinawa.
Yeah, Okinawa sea turtle, I think we come up, we have the most, I suppose, English information.
Yes.
And so it's very easy to do a search on Okinawa sea turtles and our name will pop up.
So another question, Carl, a really important question. You've actually achieved a lot in 5 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your proudest achievements on this mission?
My proudest achievement, I suppose, well, very proud of the number of babies and nests that we have protected, and also the number of specimens that we've rescued.
Yeah.
But I'm most proud of our team, you know.
Yeah.
Very dedicated people who patrol, you know, before dawn.
Yes.
Every day during the summer.
Yeah.
We're out there monitoring the nests.
Yeah.
And are out there educating the public, putting on events for community engagement, fundraising to keep the lights on in our office, and buy the equipment that we need. Very selfless people, and I'm so blessed to have their support.
Yeah.
And actually don't feel worthy, you know, sometimes because, you know, these people are amazing.
It's humbling, isn't it? It must be very humbling work, and what I really sense from you is, you know, the altruistic soul in you. So it's a privilege to kind of speak with you today.
Thank you.
You mentioned some things that you were kind of some other achievements I forget this morning. The most in the country or the world? I can't remember.
We have a few firsts, I suppose. The biggest sea turtle identification database, utilizing citizen science, where, you know, tourists and locals will submit photos they take of sea turtles that they see in the water. Not all species, but particularly green and hawksbills have a unique facial scale pattern, and we can run it through a special algorithm, AI software, and use it like a fingerprint to give them an identification. And so we have over 300 encounters, submissions, and based on that, there are a few repetitions, of course. We have over 200 individuals identified, and so now we have a database that we share with researchers throughout Japan and also internationally, like our friends in Taiwan and Hawaii, where there are migration patterns between, and so that helps with research. We had a very unusual nest at the beginning of the season, which was laid March 29, which is unusually early. Most of the nesting activity we have witnessed before or in the past has been from May onwards, so more than a month earlier than usual. Does
that concern you?
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the world. There's obviously global warming. This year was El Nino, which means the nature world was
closer to the sun, right?
A lot of unusual things happening. Birds were nesting earlier. We have rising sea temperatures. We have just an extremely hot summer in general, which means maybe you weren't aware that, but the sex of the turtle is determined by the temperature during incubation. And when it's too hot, when it's above 29 degrees Celsius, they turn into females.
Oh my goodness.
When it's under that, 29, 27, 29 is about the pivotal temperature range for them to become one or the other.
That is incredible.
And so the fear is that with rising global warming, etc., 99% of all babies being born are female.
And they're going to be more males now?
No, so males are determined with lower temperatures.
Right.
And so 99% being female due to hotter temperatures really throws the balance out of whack, which will also exacerbate their endangerment status because there's not enough males out there to you know, try to, how do you find you know, bumping into another sea turtle out there in the wild in itself is a miracle, but when you can't find a male to mate with, then we have also experienced a lot of unfertilized nests. So just like chickens, sea turtles will still come up onto the shore to lay their eggs, even if they haven't mated. And so we'll be protecting them for 60, 70, 80, 90 days. Finally dig them up and realize that they're still eggs. They haven't developed. And so that's a big threat to their survivability as well.
So we are at the tipping point here, because just diving this week, the temperature is 29 degrees consistently at the bottom of the ocean, which is crazy when you think about it. The ocean has never been this warm. There's a lot of coral bleaching going on. You can even see the red coral bleaching at this point.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly worrying time, and that is a shocking statistic that now the sex of the turtle is changing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. So this thing that kind of got sidetracked, we had this very early nest in the beginning of the season, and it took like close to 90 days to incubate, which is unheard of in the world of sea turtle conservation. And so that's something we're going to write up and publish in some papers, etc.
Yeah.
But that nest had pretty phenomenal success rate as well.
Wow.
And so we're pretty confident that they were going to be males, of course, right?
Yeah.
Lower temperatures, longer periods,
right.
And they got out there safely. And so we're very thankful that at least one or maybe two nests this year were under that threshold to become males and help repopulate the boys out there, you know.
So actually the incubation process that you're now kind of inducing needs to be timed according to the season.
Yeah.
That's changed as well.
There are people out there who incubate themselves, you know, collect the eggs, put them in a box or in an incubator machine and control the temperature in the hope of producing more males, of course. That is something we have discussed as a team, whether it's ethical to play God or to mess with the natural process. It's still a pretty contentious issue. We have decided not to get into that right now, but I can imagine if the world gets more messed up, we might have to take more affirmative action. But right now we're hoping that nature will find its course, will balance things out naturally, whether that be more nests in the beginning or the end of the season, so they can incubate longer at lower temperatures.
Let's end on a fascinating topic, which is the fingerprint, if you will, of the turtle. Now they all have their own unique fingerprint. How does that work?
The facial scale patterns.
Right.
Yes, which we just touched on. The scale patterns on the side of the face. We use the left side because the left and the right can be different.
Okay.
And so you want to have
consistency.
Consistency. Something to compare them to. So the people who submit photos to us, we ask them to get the left. Great to have the right and the top and the full body, the carapace as well, just to include in the individual's records. It might be missing a flipper, it might have a tag on it, it might have a unique marking on its shell, and these can all help to identify it later on if someone cannot, they're not very cooperative, right? So, hey, just show me your left side. Then, they're pretty timid, so you have to get up really close and get them in a state where they're going to show it to you. But if we can get the right or the top and other things to identify it, we can include that in its profile, I suppose.
Now, where do you see your mission going, and what is it that you need to get you to the next part of your mission?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have some big goals and dreams. We want to build Japan's first sea turtle rescue center, where we can rehabilitate them and provide medical treatment, etc. We want to establish actually this whole reef system as Japan's first sea turtle sanctuary as well. That's a long-term goal because we need to get politicians and government involved, a lot of permits and just recognition from the lawmakers. But we also discovered that in order to protect turtles, we have to protect the whole marine ecosystem.
Right.
And so our operations have expanded into a lot of beach cleanups, in-water cleanups, removing ghost nets out of the ocean. And that means talking to the fishermen and trying to educate them on how they can have more sustainable practices. Overfishing is a big problem here. Over-tourism is a big problem here. Stop building hotels on the beaches. Stop destroying the natural coastline, because it's not just turtles they're affecting. And our greatest fear is that, if we fail, sea turtles go extinct, then, our grandchildren, the only chance they will get to see a live sea turtle will be, in the aquarium. Where they have breeding programs, or YouTube, for example.
Or we're still a history museum when
exactly, when they're all gone. And so trying to prevent that is our mission, of course. But but you know, corals are included in that. Sponges, which are the main diet of the hawksbill turtles.
Wow.
Plastic pollution. Just trying to educate the public, especially the next generation, the kids, very important to us because, you know, unfortunately they're going to have to inherit the problems that, you know, our forefathers and even our generation has created. So
it's laying a foundation for them. Now, Carl actually goes out to the schools to educate all of these young learners about them, and there's a real enthusiasm, isn't there, which is really promising.
They love it.
Very promising for the future.
And you know, we're pretty lucky that sea turtles are a popular, you know, what do you call them?
Popular reptile, popular species.
Something megafauna. You know.
Yes.
And you know, they're in Nemo movie. What do you call it? Crush, etc.
Yeah, they're a popular character, really.
Exactly, right. And so people can really relate to them. And they're, you know, a symbol of the ocean and the ocean's health. And if they disappear, then the whole ecosystem will collapse. The balance will disintegrate, and then we'll see, you know, other consequential problems.
Luckily, you did mention that in terms of Japan, poaching is not too much of an issue here now. That's good.
Luckily. But that's not the case in other parts of the world.
Right.
Where you know, indigenous populations rely on them as a source of protein, or as a source of income by selling and trading, and not just the meat and the eggs, which they use for aphrodisiacs in some places, but also the shells, especially the hawksbill, which is used for making tortoiseshell in sunglasses frames or hair accessories, etc.
Completely unnecessary, isn't it?
Yeah, and even the taxidermy trade, which is just like so senseless, right? But thankfully Japan is coming to their senses and cutting down on all this. It is illegal to poach them, to hunt them, unless you have a license, which they do offer licenses for, and the consumption as well.
Now, do you have a personal favourite type of turtle?
The baby greens are the cutest, for sure. I think I showed you a video of them running to the water.
And they're one of the most vulnerable as well.
Greens, throughout the world, they are endangered, not critically endangered. They are rebounding in some places and becoming a threat to the ecosystem in some places because their population is exploding. I'll tell you what's going on. There are some places in Japan where they still do shark culling. Right? Have you seen that? Where they'll go out and just bait and hook every single shark they can find.
And for the shark fins soup, right? Or other purposes as well.
Yeah, so they're not allowed to just take the fins, but shark fin consumption in Japan is not a big thing. They will be exported to Hong Kong or whatever.
More in China,
but they use all the meat. You know, the kamaboko and the fake crab meat and stuff that you buy. That's all crab. I mean shark.
Right. Wow.
And so it is being used, but they're culling these sharks because they are threatening the fishing industry. They're saying they're eating too much tuna and they need to catch a tuna. But when they go out and kill sea turtles' only natural predator, you know, at a certain size, namely the tiger shark, they are basically guaranteeing that they're going to live for a long age. Taking out sea turtles' only natural predator means their population is going to explode. There's no balance anymore. They're basically threatening the whole ecosystem by allowing sea turtles to overpopulate and therefore destroying their feeding grounds.
So what do they feed on?
Yeah, so these green sea turtles feed on seagrass, seaweeds, and mozuku. And mozuku is a big part of the Okinawan fishery industry.
The type of seaweed,
they harvest it, and they use it in a lot of foods and stuff. And so the fishermen get pissed because the sea turtles are eating all their produce, right? And so they want to go and kill them. And that actually happened 2 years ago over in Kumejima Island, where a fisherman stabbed 60 pregnant mothers in the neck and let him bleed out.
No way.
Because he was pissed that they were eating all this Molska seaweed. No punishment, wild animals, right? So if these were dogs or cats, you know, it'd be animal cruelty.
Yeah.
But they're treated as just like another fish, and there's no repercussions for killing these endangered animals.
There's no excuse for animal cruelty, is there?
Right, and so they need to understand that they're creating this situation by killing all the sharks, their natural predator. They're allowing the sea turtles to overpopulate, destroying the ecosystem, not just the Molska seaweed, but the seagrass and other natural seaweeds. And so they're foraging themselves out of a habitat as well. And so eventually they're going to have to move on if they don't starve in the meantime.
Yeah.
And they got to understand that everything's connected, like you said. There's a balance.
Right.
If they just stop killing the sharks, then sharks will take the natural course of doing what they're meant to do, is cleaning up the ocean.
Yeah.
And they only attack the sick and the old fish anyway. They're not really a threat to the fishing industry, where they would keep the fish stocks healthy. There's just a lot of misconceptions about the role that sharks play in the ecosystem.
Right.
It's really sad.
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, having seen sharks in the wild for me was an actual turning point, where I actually started to genuinely like them and appreciate what they do in the ecosystem.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, and in that sense, I think diving is a useful hobby, because it does raise awareness, as does snorkeling and things like that. Yeah. When you get up close with these creatures, you realise that we are connected. We are inherently connected, and we're so disconnected from them in the cities.
Yeah, nature.
Yes.
Get out there, guys.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Carl.
Appreciate
it's been a
it.
privilege talking to you.
Thank you very much. Hey, thank you.
And we're going to end on some footage from the Karama Islands now, from a recent dive, where if you're lucky you can see some of these in action. Bye everyone.
Save the turtles.
Bye. Thank you for that.
You're going to make me famous now.
Yeah, that's the plan.